Hey, welcome back to the channel. Today's video is a really special video. It's for content creators who use their iPhones to create videos on YouTube, Instagram, or any other social platform, as well as for mobile photographers who basically use their iPhones to capture photos when they're on the go. So if you really want to know how you can get the best photos and the best videos out of your iPhone, stay tuned and watch the rest of this video. Yep, you heard me right. In this video, we're looking at how you can control your iPhone like a DSLR or a mirrorless camera and get complete manual control when you're shooting photos and videos on this device. As a matter of fact, also get the ability to swap out lenses when you're shooting on your iPhone every time you go out to shoot. So a lot of you guys already know that I'm a massive advocate for shooting on your phone as well as shooting on a GoPro or any of these tiny action cameras, mobile cameras that stay in your pocket every time you're out and about, and starting your careers and your journeys of content creation with these devices. So I personally did the exact same thing. I started shooting on a GoPro and an iPhone, and in time I have graduated to a mirrorless camera, but this is almost a year after shooting just on these tiny cameras and creating all the content that I have on my channel using just them. So I'm currently using the iPhone 12 Pro Max, and this camera is truly mind-blowing. Been extremely happy with the way this camera performs in my pocket and in my hand every time I'm out and about. Okay, so I'm currently filming this on the iPhone 12 Pro Max using the front-facing camera. I'm filming this in 4K at 24 frames per second. I have my shutter speed dialed in at 1/48, and I have my ISO at all-time minimum because there's a lot of light coming onto my face right now. I can also see my audio levels on the screen, and overall I think this is a fantastic vlog setup because I can use multiple resources and dial in the image on the app. Yes, we're using the Pro Camera app, which is what we're going to be talking about today. So what do you guys think of the image? Do you like it? So I think that looks pretty sick. Phones have come a really long way, and they've started to surprise me how good they look. And like I told you, I dialed in the settings when I was shooting that test vlog on this phone, and the app that I used for that was the Moment Pro Camera app, because it is the Moment Pro Camera app that lets you control your iPhone like a DSLR or a mirrorless camera and gives you complete manual control with a whole bunch of features available for you to use at all time, making this little camera so much more professional looking. Okay, so it is kind of true that I am a massive fanboy when it comes to Moment and gear that they make and the overall channel on YouTube that they have on filmmaking and mobile filmmaking specifically, and I am also a part of Moment's creator community known as the Moment Squad. I've been following Moment for a very long time, and I've had this app on me for a very long time. Okay, so let's not waste any further time. We're going to jump into this app right now. I'm going to give you a quick demo and walkthrough of what all you get, and after that I'm going to tell you exactly why I think this is essential for your journey as a filmmaker. So the first thing you're going to notice when you jump into the Moment Pro Camera app is the user interface. It's extremely easy and very well laid out. On the bottom right hand side corner you have the little camera icon, which when you click on, you're going to get to choose which mode you want to stay within the app. You're going to get to choose between photo, video, time-lapse and slow shutter. Next to that you have your preset menu, which basically lets you select and create your own custom presets and shooting modes, so you can dive straight in without having to toggle a bunch of manual settings. Center bottom of your screen you have your shutter button, and on the extreme left hand side of your screen you have your playback button, which lets you go back into your photo gallery or your camera roll and be able to see all the images and videos that you've just captured using the app. You have this little settings icon, which if you tap on, you can change the entire settings and user interface of the app. It's the overall settings guide. For the top user interface you have your flash, you have your timer settings, you have the ability to choose the format that you want to shoot in. For example, I'm going to select Apple Pro RAW here, and you also have the ability to select your lens. Furthermore, you can also tap on your screen to choose any of the inbuilt lenses on your iPhone, and you can also switch between your front and back cameras, and overall that's the entire basic user interface of this app. Okay, so on top of your main user interface, you're going to see another bar where you're going to have a bunch of different manual controls. We start off with shutter speed, ISO, exposure value, focus, white balance, and a whole bunch of control. Yes, you can control your shutter speed and your ISO now on your iPhone manually like you do on a proper professional camera, but if you don't want to mess with those settings, you can just go to exposure value and control the overall exposure, which is going to toggle the shutter speed as well as the ISO for you and make use of the aperture of your lens to dial in the actual correct exposure at any given point in time. You have the ability to shift between autofocus and manual focus, and you can also control the white balance on your camera directly. Basically use any of these sliders to dial in your image and you're good to go. But if you're confused and you're not being able to tune in the right settings, which is something that happens to a lot of beginners, you can always just double tap on any of these icons or any of these settings that you've changed, and the camera is going to go back into auto mode and adjust that particular setting for you automatically using artificial intelligence, using the intelligent image signal processor that iPhone has built into it. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and shift modes from photo to video because video is what I'm most excited about. So when you jump into video mode, you're going to see that you have the exact same manual control settings for shutter speed, ISO, exposure ISO value, your focus settings, as well as your white balance on one side, but on the other side you also have the ability to control your frame rate like you do on the native camera app. Now why I'm really excited about this is, for example, if I choose 24 frames per second, I can go down and adjust my shutter speed to 1/48 and get the right exposure, maybe pull down my ISO a little bit to adjust the exposure a bit more and get that cinematic look and exposure on my iPhone directly, which you cannot do in the native camera app. And I can actually follow the 180-degree shutter rule right here, which gives you the right amount of motion blur. I have the ability to toggle between various resolutions from 720p to 4K. And I can also choose my color profile between default, log and flat, which is fantastic. I normally shoot with the default color profile and tweak it from there, but if you're somebody who's really serious about color correcting your videos, I would suggest shooting in flat or log profile, because this is going to give you so much more dynamic range and flexibility in post. What I really love about video mode is the fact that you now have audio levels on your screen and you can actually see what gain percentage your microphone's actually picking up on, and that's fantastic. It also works with third-party mics, so you're always good to go. You can look at your screen and see if your audio is coming in good and crispy or not. And in addition to all of these, you still have the ability to choose any of the external lenses that Moment sells on their website, and you can toggle between these lenses so that your camera and your Pro Camera app adjusts and understands what lens you're actually using. Okay, so the next mode that we're going to be looking at is the slow shutter mode. Slow shutter mode is essentially for long exposure photography and videography. It's really cool, but it's also a very niche kind of photography. I know a lot of people are not into it, but if you are, you have the ability to do this now on your phone. So what this ideally gives you is the ability to shoot videos and photos with motion blur, as well as capture light trails at night, give you that extremely artsy look if you're into it. It's an extremely creative format to have on a smartphone. Now you have the ability to adjust your motion blur as well as your light trails from custom intervals that Moment gives you, as you can see. If you're not happy with this, you can definitely go into bulb mode, which is essentially what you have on bigger cameras such as DSLRs and mirrorless cameras, and be able to actually adjust the timing of your video or your photo as you like. Once you do shoot your long exposure photo or video, you have the ability to save it as a live photo within your camera roll, giving you the ability to toggle between photo and video mode and convert it to either format that you would want to use and share on any social platform. Well, I don't make use of long exposure photography too much, but if you want to capture the night sky or you want to capture amazing cityscape lights, I think the slow shutter mode is essential. And the last mode that we're going to jump into is the time-lapse mode, which is really cool to have on any camera app. The iPhone native camera app can shoot time lapses, but not like the Moment Pro Camera app. I'm going to tell you exactly why. When you get into the time-lapse mode in the Pro Camera app, you're going to be able to see that you have something called effects at the bottom left-hand side corner. These effects are basically motion blur and light trails, and that's right, you can actually capture motion blur and light trails just like you do in the slow shutter mode while shooting time lapses, giving your time lapse that extremely smooth and cinematic look that you cannot pull off on the native camera app on your iPhone. Amazing time lapse photographers, especially somebody like Andy To, who's a fantastic mobile filmmaker, you see a lot of motion blur in his time lapses. You can recreate that exact same effect on your phone inbuilt within the Pro Camera app without having to go to an editing software. You have the ability to choose the number of frames that you want to capture when you're shooting a time lapse. You have the ability to choose the interval for time lapses as well. You can choose between your image formats if you're shooting a photo time lapse, and you can also choose whatever resolution you want. You can toggle between various lenses in this mode as well. The time lapse feature on the Moment Pro Camera app is super packed, filled with features that you do not get on 90% of the mobile filmmaking apps out there. So if you're somebody who's into making amazing cinematic time lapses, especially when you're out traveling, this is definitely an app that you need to check out. Let's quickly jump into the presets menu and see what you can do here. As you can see, I have a bunch of presets already created. When you do download the Moment Pro Camera app, you will get a couple of demo presets pre-made for you, but you can go ahead and tweak them. Presets basically give you the ability to choose different settings and features within the Pro Camera app and just have them ready. You don't need to deep dive into any of the modes and reset up your camera. Your settings are going to be saved the way you like them. Overall, as you can see, creating a preset is really easy. For example, if I want to shoot in slow motion mode, all I'm going to do is go into video mode. Once I'm in video mode, I'm going to choose my frame rate at about 60 frames per second, which is the frame rate I like to use for a lot of my slow motion. After which I'm going to go down and toggle the shutter speed to 1/120 so I can follow the 180-degree shutter rule. After which I'm going to go and pull down my ISO. Now I'm going to go into the preset menu and click on create new preset. Put in the title of slow-mo on the top, brush through my settings. You're going to see that my shutter speed, my frame rate, my resolution, my lens, everything is set up the way it was a few seconds ago. All I got to do is save preset and I'm good to go. The preset is now saved. If you want to delete the presets or you want to change any of the presets, you just hit the edit button on the top right hand side in the preset menu and you can actually go down and delete the preset or deep dive in and change any of the settings that you would like. Overall, I think it's fantastic, but a couple of taps on my screen get me to where I want to be, and I don't need to mess around with any of the sliders at any given point of time. Another reason why I always recommend shooting in manual mode is because, for example, if you end up shooting with your ultra-wide lens in a low light situation using the native camera app on your iPhone, you're going to notice that the image isn't as sharp as it is in bright conditions. It's extremely noisy and there's a large amount of grain introduced into the image. This is because your native camera app is just going to bump up the ISO on your ultra-wide lens. While that's going to bring in a lot more light into your image, it's going to come with all of these caveats that I just mentioned. But what I prefer to do is get into the Moment Pro camera app, adjust my ISO to a level where it doesn't introduce too much of grain and it doesn't introduce too much of noise into my image. And at the same time, I'm going to pull down my shutter speed to be a lot slower, and this is going to introduce a lot more light into the image while reducing the amount of noise and the amount of grain that you would normally get when you shoot in the native camera app. For low light photography and low light videography, you have a lot more control and balance to get a cleaner image that you can actually tweak later in your editing program and make it look a lot better. You can also select a bunch of pro-based features by jumping into the settings, which is basically making use of grid lines, which is inbuilt, and you have different types of grids that you can actually use, making it a lot easier to frame up your shot. You have support for various mobile gimbals such as the DJI Osmo 3, 2, 4, and various other gimbals that come out in the market, giving you that smooth, buttery footage. Your standard features that you have on your native camera app also inbuilt into the Pro camera app, like making use of your volume buttons as a shutter button if you're shooting in horizontal mode. You have in-depth exposure control such as focus peaking, histograms, highlight clipping, and a whole bunch of different pro level settings that you normally have on a mirrorless or a DSLR camera. You also have very in-depth audio control and settings so that you can actually have better control over the audio that you're capturing when you're shooting your videos. You can also choose your image formats. You have HEVC support. You also have the ability to choose your bitrate between 60 megabits to 100 megabits. Now, if you don't understand what bitrate is, it's basically the amount of data that your camera is going to capture within the image so that you can actually go ahead and tweak it and edit it later. More data means better flexibility in editing. Furthermore, you have the ability to toggle on and off an inbuilt de-squeeze for your anamorphic lens. Now, we're not going to jump into what that is, but basically it's support for anamorphic lenses, which are a specialty that Moment already has. And now that brings me to the next segment, which is basically compatibility with external lenses. Moment has a wide selection of lenses available on their website that they have made. Moment actually came out as a mobile filmmaking tech company. They basically made accessories for mobile filmmakers so that you could take your mobile photography and videography to a whole new level. I have a bunch of Moment lenses and I'm extremely happy with them. You have lenses such as the wide lens, telephoto lens, two different anamorphic lenses, a macro lens, as well as a fisheye lens, which you can actually toggle within the app. So when you're in the app and you're particularly mounting a Moment lens on top of your phone, you can actually go into the lens menu and select which Moment lens you're actually using at that given point in time, and the app is going to adjust the image for you, giving you complete support for these lenses so that your image doesn't come out distorted or weird looking because you have added different glass on top of your lens. Within the native iPhone camera app, you can adjust the exposure, but as a whole, exposure compensation slider. But in the Moment Pro camera app, you have much more in-depth controls for your exposure with the help of shutter speed and ISO, which is basically 2 out of 3 components of the exposure triangle. Overall, the app gives you much better precision control over the exposure when compared to the native camera. I picked up the Moment Pro camera app about 2 years ago, and the main reason why I picked it up at that point with my iPhone 10 was basically because I wanted to shoot raw photos on my phone, and the Moment Pro camera app actually gives you this ability to be able to shoot raw versus JPEG, which is what you would shoot on your native camera. You're going to look at me and go like, no, but like the new iPhones have something called Apple Pro RAW on them, but you need to remember that this is only available on the Pro model. But if you're somebody who has the iPhone 12 or the iPhone 12 mini or any of the older iPhones, the ability to shoot raw on the native camera app still doesn't exist, which is why I had originally bought the Moment Pro camera app, because you can go into the Pro camera app even now and shoot raw on your phone versus shooting JPEGs, which is going to give you tons of data in your image. It's going to make use of the entire sensor readout, and it's also going to give you a lot more flexibility in post to be able to create the image that you're actually hoping for. On the overall, I think the Moment Pro camera app is a fantastic app for any iPhone content creator out there. Unfortunately, this app is not available on Android, so I will talk about other apps in another video that you could use on your Android phones. But if you're an iPhone content creator, the entire ecosystem that Moment makes, which includes the Moment case, Moment lenses, the Moment Pro camera app, and new MagSafe accessories for the iPhone 12 series, overall make the entire filmmaking photography process on your phone so much better and brings your phone so much closer to a mirrorless or a DSLR camera like one that I'm filming on right now, giving you fantastic image quality, fantastic manual control. I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope you learned something about mobile filmmaking today. The Moment Pro camera app is great. It's not free for iPhone users, but it is a one-time pay There's no subscription to it, so once you buy it, it's yours for life. Definitely hit that subscribe button. It's going to help the channel a lot. Give this video a like and stay tuned for more. There's going to be a lot more tutorials on filmmaking, mobile filmmaking and photography particularly, and maritime videos coming up in the near future. So definitely stay tuned for more. I'm Nitin Chawla. I'm going to see you in the next one. Peace.